Hello, fellow crocheters. I am so excited because I want to share with you my version of a modern granny square. But first, I want to go over how to make a modern granny square. I have some tips for those of you who are accomplished crocheters that you might like to incorporate. Or this is just a review for people who have forgotten, or a tutorial for people who have never tried a modern granny square. I'm also going to do a video of changing colors, and then also the stitches that go with my modern granny square, because I actually came up with a new stitch that I want to show everybody. So here we go. We're going to start out our modern granny square by making a slip knot. So wrap the yarn around your fingers. Make sure you see that little X there. And then you're going to pull through your working yarn and snug this up. You don't want it to be too tight. It needs to move easily on your hook. Oh, and for those of you who are wondering, I'm using Bernhardt Baby Sport. And this is baby blue, and then I'm using an H hook. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and chain 4. And then we're going to slip stitch to the first stitch. And just pull through both of those loops at the same time. There we go. And then we're going to chain 2. Now, we're going to be working with double crochet. And I know most charts and a lot of people tell you when you're doing double crochet to chain 3, because this stands in as a double crochet. But for me, 2 works better. I chain 2. So, do what works best for you, and I guess that's my first tip. Figure out what works best for you and do it. You're the one that needs to feel comfortable with your work and comfortable with the results. So, okay, now we're going I'm sorry, I forgot. I like to run this tail around my circle a couple of times so that I can get it all anchored in there. So I just run it around, but you need to kind of keep your finger in your hole because you can lose your hole very easily. So go ahead, run it around, there's your hole, and you're going to do 2 double crochets. You remember, wrap around the hook once, go through your area you're working, pull up a loop, and then you're going to go through 2. And then go through 2 and do another double crochet. Now this is a set of 3, and I like to do these modern granny squares with a set of 3 instead of a set of 4. I've seen people start them out with 4, but when you do 4 as the base, you're smushing a lot more a lot more stitches in here and pushing your yarn around to get them in, and I just like 3. And also when you're counting, and I do count, every row is going to be multiple of 3 because you add 3 stitches in every row. So I just think it just works so much better to start out with 3. So the chain 3 is a corner, and then another set of 3 double crochets, and you can tell I am not the fastest crocheter in the world, but that's okay. We all go at our own speed. And then we're going to go ahead and we've got 3, so we're going to do our 4th set of 3. chain our last chain 3, and then we're going to slip stitch into the top right here, top of the first double crochet. Slip stitch, pull that through, and there we go. So chain 2. And when you get this snipped off, it'll look a lot better down here. What I want to tell you right now is that in order to get 3 more in every row or round, you're going to end up having 2 extra on this side of this post. So you want 2 to the right of the right post and 2 to the left of the left post, and then you're going to work in these tops of the stitches that are in between the posts. Now this chain actually counts for one that's in this side of the post. So you're going to go ahead and do a stitch right next to it. Pull that out of the way, and when this is chunky yarn, pulling it out of the way, that's an easy one to miss, so you really have to pull that out of the way to work right there. So that's my next tip, and you know, it was not something anybody showed me, I just had to kind of figure it out. So I wanted to tell you that's one of the things I've learned that work for me. So other people might do other things, but when you skip this space right there and you go here, you have a big hole and it's obvious. So just trying to give you a little help right there. And our chain 3, 2 more into the chain space. Now I just generally use it in the chain space, but if you want, you can work in here. But the thing you need to remember is that you still need only 2 to the right of that right post. Because where I have found I have made mistakes is I have gone ahead and done 2 in the chain space and then 1 there, and you don't want to do that. You're going to end up with some funky looking square. Well, it won't be a square anymore. So just make sure, you know, either 1 in the chain space and 1 in the stitch, or 2 in the chain space and then go over here. And then 2 more over here. And I'm just going to do these 2 rounds. There are a couple other things I want to show you really quickly. And let me get this round done. This is just really repetitive. I'll work in there because it's a big space right there. Now in my directions, I always say 2 in the chain space and then chain 3 and then 2 more in the chain space. That's what my directions say. But I'm letting you know it's certainly okay to do 1 in the chain space and 1 in the top of that stitch. You just don't want to do 2 in the chain space and then 1 in the top of that stitch. It's just wonky. It makes everything wonky. Alright, we are almost done with this row. I promise this is the last row I'm going to do. You're going to have it figured out. because you're going to know that you do 2 on this side. I went ahead and did 2 in the chain space, so I'm going to skip that and go to the other side and finish this up. And then 2 in the chain space. Okay, this is where we want our next little, oh, look, I split my yarn. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Last chain. And this is where I want to give you the last little tip for today. We did 5 double crochets, well, 4 double crochets in the chain, which is of the 5th one, stands in for the 5th one. And then so you're going to finish up your 6 by doing 1 double crochet on this side of your chain. Now if you're going to just keep chaining up and using the same color, every row you're going to do an additional stitch to this side of your chain, and your chain will move over here, it'll come over here and over here, so you're going to chain to it, so it's going to be an additional stitch with every new row. And then we're going to just come up here at the top and slip stitch. For all practical purposes, I think you got that, so I'm going to end here. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. So there you go, a tiny little modern granny square, and my next video will be adding the next color. See you then.